Hello everyone, welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I wanted to give a quick overview of the results last night from the perspective of the left. And what I mean by that is, let me say it this way, and this is going to be slightly a bit of wood to chop, but I kind of want to make a point. In the Batman film, not the Heath Ledger one, the one after that, the one with Bane, Batman was an older, more grizzled Batman. And for the most part, he was aged. He still had his money. His money was a superpower to some degree. But his physical body, I mean, he's just a person. He was getting older. And yet, he was still going out, still punching people in the face, still in his Batmobile and all this other good stuff. He was still Batman. Batman's biggest weapon, believe it or not, is not necessarily his devices, it's not the car, it's not the Batjet, it's not the shark repellent. It is fear. People were terrified of him. They didn't exactly know what he was. Because they didn't necessarily know what he was and he worked in the shadows, they were terrified. The whole reason that he used the thing as a bat is because he himself was terrified of bats. And he wanted to instill that fear in other people. And he used that fear to fight crime. Now, whatever you want to make the argument about whether or not it's right for a man with a mental illness to put on a uniform and go out and punch people in the face, that's a conversation we can have. But right now, that's kind of besides the point. In that third installment, Batman is lured, I guess you can say, to a basement of sorts, or to a building. And in this building, he meets Bane. Bane is not scared of Batman. His fear doesn't work here. His money is not going to help him here. This is one man versus another man. And when Batman's weapons are expended, when all of his gadgets are done, and he's dealing just with one-on-one in a street fight with Bane, Batman is broken. Batman is broken. A grown man being lifted over his head and dropped on another man's knee like they were in pro wrestling and just tosses him off. You fight with the vigor of a younger man. Now, Bane doesn't say it that way. Bane has this weird voice in Batman. But whatever. He won. So it doesn't matter what his voice sounds like. He won. Winning is all that matters in this case. And Batman was thrown down a tunnel. And the city that Batman loved, like he was some rapper from, from the South or from New York or something like that, a video camera was put up or television was put up so Batman can watch that city get burned to the ground. Batman recovered. Batman crawled out of that tunnel, and Batman ran back to Gotham. Yes, I know that sounds weird that Batman will run back to Gotham, but somehow he got back to Gotham. What I'm getting at, and this is a long way, a lot of wood to chop, is that you've heard me make this reference often, that on the night of the convention, the DNC convention, Bernie Sanders was Batman. And Bernie Sanders was Batman being broken over the back of the DNC and Hillary Clinton. Batman, I've made the analogy before, dragged around in a cage and with apples and grapes thrown at him, with them screaming at the top of their lungs to every progressive that can hear, "This is your leader! Get on your knees and worship her! And give her your vote. Give her your vote." Now, it didn't matter that they did this. Ultimately, she lost the reality show host anyway. But the day after the loss, who was out there running back to Gotham with a sign, holding it up, trying to hold Donald Trump accountable for everything that he said on the campaign trail and every promise that everybody knew Donald Trump was going to break? Hillary Clinton put her head in a hole and stuck her head out the hole to hawk her book. Sanders was jumping around the country talking to anybody that would listen. A, about a moral economy. B, attacking Donald Trump. And C, attacking Democrats for their failings. Yesterday was an election. A big election, to be honest. And one of the results of that election, yes, Democrats did well. Some of those Democrats were corporate as corporate can be. Some of those Democrats were just wheat bread, run-of-the-mill Democrats. But some of those people who won were independent. Some of those people were outright socialists. This is The Intercept. A year after Trump, Democrats, Socialists, and Populists sweep elections. A civil rights attorney who delights in suing the police is the new district attorney in Philadelphia. A Democratic Socialist shocked an incumbent Republican in Virginia. A black woman who prosecuted a white cop for shooting a black teenager was re-elected as prosecutor. 3 months after Charlottesville, a black lieutenant governor was elected in Virginia. Mind you, the guy who was that lieutenant governor, Magruder, made the point that the Democrats was trying to scrub him off the list. That's amazing. He was too far to the left. A transgender woman who focused on traffic problems knocked out a longtime culture warrior who focused on bathrooms. A criminal justice reformer flipped the Washington State Senate to Democrat. A wet bag of mulch beat a race-baiting lobbyist in Virginia by a stunning 9 points. Maine voters expanded Medicaid. Long-held Republican seats in Georgia flipped in a special election. New Jersey finished with Governor Chris Christie elected a Democrat in a landslide. Now, that being said, Chris Christie stunk up the office so much that pretty much a ham sandwich could have been elected in that case, but in this case, it was a Democrat. Same difference. The race-baiting lobbyists, I think they're talking about the wet bag of mulch beat a race-baiting lobbyist in Virginia. I think they're talking about the governor's race. Northman ran a campaign as a centrist. Fiscal responsibility, that guy. As for the ballot measure, where is it? In Maine, passing Medicaid expansion. That was our revolution. That was our revolution. Apparently, our revolution put that ballot measure together, and that ballot measure passed. Facing what looked to pundits like an insurmountable 32-seat gap, Democrats are on the brink of taking back the Virginia House of Delegates, a result that now comes down to recounts. It is very possible that Virginia, the House of Delegates, will flip. It's amazing. Now, here we are. In special elections since last November, Democrats have dramatically outperformed at the polls. The Republicans have dismissed each flip seat as a one-off, and it's not as evidence of a pattern. Tuesday will be much harder to write off. Look, for instance, to a pair of special elections in very red state of Georgia. 2 state house seats were up for grabs, both being vacated by Republicans. Democrats won them both. One of these, Democrats, Deborah Gonzalez, raised $55,000 for her campaign. Her opponent failed to best her even after raising $200,000. Also, the Socialist in Virginia won. He didn't get support from the Democratic Party, and he still won. In one of the articles I read, they wanted him to do all of this calling and all this other stuff, calling and begging for money. They wanted him to list the thank you notes that he was sending to people who were giving him money. It's amazing stuff. He refused to do it. They withdrew their support. He still won. He still won. I understand that people have certain issues with Sanders, particularly on the far left, the area to which we dwell. Some of those issues I share, some of those issues I do not. But one thing that I would argue that's unmistakable, he's giving you space. He is giving you space. Now, what I mean by that is, you've had Democratic Socialists in this country getting elected to office. You've had people running to the left in their campaigns getting into office. Now, some of this had to do purely with Donald Trump being ghastly. I've recounted this poll before that was taken, these exit polls in Virginia, where of the people who disliked Donald Trump, 86% voted for a Democrat. Any random Democrat. Just pick a Democrat out of a hat and you got it. Now, the problem with this is Democrats may take this to mean that, hey, we can go back to status quo. They're so terrified of Donald Trump, they're willing to put a status quo candidate back in that office. And unfortunately, that may be true. They may be true. They may be so willing to pick any random Democrat that they would pick any random Democrat. That being said, that's also a space for us, or people who I would consider to be on the left. You have space. You have space and opportunity. And some of these people were able to take advantage of that space and opportunity to get into office. Not all of these people who got into office were going to be to your best interest. That was never going to happen. By the same token, some people were able to take advantage. And our revolution cleaned up. Our revolution cleaned up. They did amazingly well. And in fact, I think, damn it, I close up. Yeah, I closed that window. I had the window of all the people who our revolution won. Mind you, Democrats' popularity is only at 30%. 37%, I'm sorry. That's it, 37%. Just so happens Republicans' popularity is at 30%. Now this is the lowest that Democrats has been since 1992. They still cleaned up. I understand Republicans may want to take this idea that, oh, this is just a once-off. You have a president who has a tone that is atrocious. And because his tone is atrocious, he is creating flack in these races. From the progressive standpoint, to some degree, I was right. Chaos is good. This is an amazing opportunity for progressives to take over and take the lead in this stuff, or at the very least contest what's considered a power structure. Unfortunately, that also means that people may be willing to just put in any random person into that office that's not Donald Trump. I don't think the information filters down to them. They're not looking at politics in these minute ways to keep track of these people. All that they're getting is a flavor of things. Meaning, by the time stuff filters down to them, they have this feeling of how things are, not necessarily the reality of how things are. Also, do not get it twisted. Democrats doing well in no way is necessarily good for you. I'm old enough to remember that, Democrats winning doesn't necessarily mean anything gets done. For the most part, it just means status quo forever. Democratic Socialists getting elected, however, that raises an eyebrow to me. I didn't know anything about Democratic Socialists of America before Bernie Sanders ran. And now these guys have a certain amount of space where they're able to get elected. The question becomes, can they hold their shape? And not just can they hold their shape, can the people who actually put them in those offices keep them accountable? That's major. That's major. It's not enough that they're in those offices. It's also this thing of what they do when they get in those offices. When this happened, when I saw the results for this, my honest opinion was, fuck. It's not that I wanted the Republican to win. I just didn't want the Democrat to win either. And I know that sounds absolutely insane. What it boils down to is I was willing to deal with a Republican winning if that meant it would put more tension on the party to change. My concern is that from the standpoint of the left, some of the tension on that party gets relieved when they get successes. The less successes, the better it is for us. That sounds harsh. That sounds weird and strange. But you are not them. Meaning, the people who are watching this, for the most part, the people who look at this channel and think to themselves, I like what the guy's saying. There's a distinction between what the Democratic Party is and what the left is. Those things are different. The people, the public, for the most part, don't understand that difference. They think those things are the same, and in their mind, there are only two parties. Well, that's not necessarily true. And having to break through that is not the easiest thing in the world to do. Democratic Socialists of America have been able, to some degree, yes, it's on a local level, but they have been able to break through. So, does this translate to something on a national level? I don't know. Does this translate to anything within the party itself? Probably not. But we'll see. This is one of those wait and see things. I would say hold these guys accountable, see what takes place. But at the end of the day, the Democrats did clean up yesterday. However you want to take it, they cleaned up yesterday. So one last thing. However you want to see Sanders, the context of Sanders, look at this for the moment from his context, from his standpoint. Sanders created our revolution. Our revolution has been headed by Nina Turner. And that woman has been extraordinarily aggressive at going at the Democratic Party and is pushing these candidates up. Now, many of these candidates got elected. They did an amazing job yesterday. So it wasn't just Democrats, it was also our revolution. Now, if you believe that these things are astroturf, fair enough. But at the very least, look at it from the context of Sanders and what he himself is trying to accomplish from his own context. Now, you can say that context is wrong. You can say that what he thinks he's going to get out of it is not going to get out of it. You can say that these people are going to be folded into the Democratic Party. All those things are fair criticisms, and all those things are, we will wait and see. We'll wait and see. Give it a few months. See what they do in those offices, and we can have that conversation. So I will leave it at that. I will put the article at the bottom so you can read the whole thing. Yeah, Democrats in and of themselves as winning is not necessarily a victory. Certain people that you believe will represent your interests, that's different. Some of these people will represent the interests of their constituency. Hold them accountable. That's your job. So I will leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks guys.